Salam sejahtera, anda bersama saya Rozman dan ini Niaga AWANI. Kita mulakan dengan perkembangan ini terlebih dahulu dengan tabung kewangan antarabangsa IMF menaikkan unjuran pertumbuhan keluaran dalam negara kasar KDNK benar Malaysia kepada 4.3% bagi tahun 2026 dan 2027. Peningkatan sebanyak 0.3 mata peratusan berbanding anggaran sebelumnya. Dalam kemas kini World Economic Outlook WEO Januari 2026 bertajuk Global Economy Steady Amid Divergent Forces, IMF turut mengunjurkan pertumbuhan KDNK benar Malaysia pada 2025 sebanyak 4.6% berbanding 5.1% pada 2024. Sebelum ini IMF menganggarkan pertumbuhan ekonomi Malaysia pada 2025 pada kadar 4.5% manakala 4.0% bagi 2026.
IMF menjangkakan ekonomi dunia kekal stabil dengan pertumbuhan 3.3% pada 2026 dan 3.2% pada 2027, hampir sama dengan anggaran 3.3% untuk 2025. Menurut IMF, prestasi global yang kelihatan stabil ini disokong oleh beberapa faktor yang saling meimbangi. Tekanan daripada perubahan dasar perdagangan dilihat berkurangan berikutan peningkatan pelaburan dalam sektor teknologi termasuk kecerdasan buatan AI terutamanya di Amerika Utara dan Asia. Sokongan dasar fiskal dan monetari, keadaan kewangan yang lebih longgar serta kebolehsuaian sektor swasta turut membantu mengekalkan momentum ekonomi. IMF turut menjangka inflasi global menurun secara beransur-ansur daripada anggaran 4.1% pada 2025 kepada 3.8% pada 2026 dan seterusnya 3.4% pada 2027. Unjuran ini hampir sama dengan laporan WEO Oktober dengan jangkaan inflasi di Amerika Syarikat kembali ke paras sasaran pada kadar yang lebih perlahan berbanding ekonomi besar lain. Namun begitu, IMF mengingatkan bahawa risiko masih cenderung ke arah penyusutan pertumbuhan. Antaranya jika jangkaan terhadap potensi produktiviti AI disemak semula, pelaburan boleh merosot dan mencetuskan penyesuaian pasaran kewangan yang mendadak, termasuk kejatuhan saham berkaitan AI yang boleh menjejaskan kekayaan isi rumah. Ketegangan perdagangan yang berpanjangan juga boleh mengekang aktiviti ekonomi. Di sebalik itu, IMF berkata, pertumbuhan berpotensi lebih tinggi sekiranya pelaburan berkaitan AI terus berkembang dan membawa kepada peningkatan produktiviti serta dinamisme perniagaan. Pengurangan ketegangan perdagangan secara berterusan juga mampu menyokong aktiviti ekonomi global. IMF menegaskan bahawa usaha mengekalkan kestabilan dan meningkatkan prospek pertumbuhan jangka sederhana memerlukan perhatian terhadap pengukuhan kedudukan fiskal, kestabilan harga dan kewangan, pengurangan ketidaktentuan dasar serta pelaksanaan reformasi struktur tanpa penangguhan.
Pelaksanaan sistem saraan perkhidmatan awam SSPA merupakan langkah strategik kerajaan untuk menangani isu jurang pendapatan boleh guna penjawat awam yang dilihat tidak lagi seiring dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup semasa. Pengarah bahagian gaji dan allowance Jabatan Perkhidmatan Awam JPA, Hasmarulaini Omar berkata, keperluan anjakan daripada sistem saraan Malaysia SSM kepada SSPA adalah kritikal memandangkan kali terakhir pelarasan gaji menyeluruh dilakukan adalah pada tahun 2012.
Memetik laporan bernama, beliau menjelaskan bahawa sepanjang tempoh 22 tahun pelaksanaan SSM sejak 2002, landscape pekerjaan, teknologi dan keperluan ekonomi telah berubah secara drastik sekaligus menuntut satu kajian sistem saraan yang lebih holistik dan mampan. Katanya cabaran utama yang dikenal pasti ialah pendapatan boleh guna penjawat awam yang tidak seimbang dengan inflasi. Selain itu, kerajaan juga katanya perlu melihat kepada kemampanan fiskal negara dalam menguruskan perbelanjaan emolumen dan faedah persaraan. Hasmarulaini berkata sistem itu bukan sekadar tertumpu kepada kenaikan gaji semata-mata, sebaliknya berteraskan falsafah ganjaran menyeluruh. Beliau berkata SSPA diperkenalkan dengan 4 objektif utama iaitu memberi pengiktirafan kepada penjawat awam berprestasi tinggi, meningkatkan kecekapan penyampaian perkhidmatan kepada rakyat, mengoptimalkan sumber manusia serta meningkatkan kualiti perkhidmatan awam secara keseluruhan. Menyentuh mengenai persaingan bakat dengan sektor swasta, Hasmarulaini mengakui kerajaan mungkin tidak dapat bersaing sepenuhnya dari segi nilai gaji tunai, namun perkhidmatan awam menawarkan pakej kesejahteraan yang lebih luas. SSPA yang mula berkuat kuasa pada 1 Disember 2024 merupakan inisiatif besar kerajaan bagi menggantikan SSM. Ia diperkenalkan sebagai reformasi dalam perkhidmatan awam untuk meningkatkan motivasi kaki tangan melalui struktur gaji yang lebih kompetitif serta penilaian prestasi yang lebih adil dan telus.
Kecerdasan buatan atau AI kini semakin memasuki ruang yang paling sensitif kesihatan manusia. Dalam dunia perubatan, AI digunakan untuk membaca imej, X-ray, CT scan dan MRI dengan janji meningkatkan ketepatan diagnosis serta mengurangkan beban kerja doktor. Namun persoalan besarnya, sejauh mana kita boleh mempercayai algoritma dalam membuat keputusan klinikal? Siapa bertanggungjawab jika berlaku kesilapan dan adakah sistem kesihatan kita benar-benar bersedia dari sudut etika, data dan kawal selia? Bersama saya di studio ketika ini adalah Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif dan Pengasas MAIA Sedang Berhad, Dr. Muhammad Hanif Abdul Gaus. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih, Doktor. Sudah tentu kita nak bercakap mengenai perkara baru, inovasi, terutama dalam sektor perubatan, industri perubatan. Mungkin boleh kongsikan dulu, apa itu ALI AI, apa antara fungsi utama dia sebagai ejen analisis data?
Okey, terima kasih kerana menjemput saya. Terima kasih kepada Astro AWANI. And then bagi saya, ALI.AI adalah satu garis algoritma yang dibina oleh Maya. Dia bermula pada tahun 2016. This garis algoritma telah mempunyai capability untuk belajar, mengingat, membuat keputusan. Dengan algoritma ini, pihak kami telah training ALI.AI dengan di mana kami memberi ALI train data sebanyak 60,000 image data.
Wow.
60,000 image data di mana data tersebut telah dilabel oleh radiologis Malaysia. Data tersebut telah membuatkan ALI.AI mempunyai capability untuk menganalisis image X-ray, MRI dan CTs untuk first phase pada 2016. Apabila research ini telah berkembang, kami pun juga telah expand data kami sebanyak 3 juta patient data, global dan local data. And then this data telah mendapat approval daripada Ethics Committee Approval Malaysia. Ethics Committee Approval Malaysia di mana this data telah dilabel oleh radiologis sendiri. And then pada 2025, tahun lepas, kami telah berjaya untuk menembusi pasaran global di mana up until now, ALI.AI telah digunakan lebih kurang 150 country globally, 6 kontinen dan juga mempunyai user sebanyak 7,000 user globally dan run analysis sebanyak 33,000 case study.
Banyak tu, beribu-ribu dah kalau kita lihat. Saya nak ucapkan tahniah atas pencapaian dan perkembangan tu sehingga mencapai lebih 150 negara, 6 kontinen dan 33,000 users pengguna dan berjaya menghasilkan beribu-ribu maklumat daripada data analisis ni. Tapi bantu kami faham sejarah ataupun latar belakang ALI.AI. Sejak bila tubuhnya ALI.AI dan apa antara inspirasi ataupun idea di sebalik penciptaan teknologi ini?
Okey, terima kasih. So, inspirasi daripada ALI.AI sebenarnya dia bermula pada tahun 2016 di mana saya final year medical school. Di situ juga di mana World Economic Forum Davos pada 2016 telah bermula. Dia berkata tentang medical AI dalam dunia perubatan. Beberapa company telah terlibat dalam World Economic Forum di mana antara company tersebut adalah G-Mafia. G-Mafia adalah company di mana Google, Facebook, IBM, Apple dan Amazon. So daripada timur, company di call the Bats. The Bats mean ByteDance, Tencent dan Alibaba.
Okey,
company tersebut telah membina framework medical artificial intelligence pada tahun tersebut. Jadi gelombang daripada gelombang artificial intelligence tu telah sampai ke Malaysia dan kami telah menyambut gelombang tu pada 2017 dan 2016. Di mana situlah the vision start. Vision start di mana kami mempunyai visi di mana kami ingin membuat satu algoritma yang boleh democratize, we call it democratize artificial intelligence in healthcare. By putting doctor into your pocket. How we putting doctor into your pocket, di mana kami ada vision pada 10 tahun lepas. Vision kami di mana if satu algoritma tu boleh diletakkan dalam phone dan boleh membantu doktor in terms of image analysis. Sebab apa image analysis? Sebab breakthrough pertama dalam artificial intelligence dalam medical adalah image analysis. Setelah itu, pada 2023, kami telah mendapat ethics committee, kami telah mendapat MDA approval daripada kerajaan Malaysia untuk dipasarkan secara global. And then bila pada masa tu 2025, kami telah put this technology in the global market pada 16 February 2025. The impact is we let the market decide. Do we, our company, have the capability, ada capability untuk dalam kata lain, augment doctors' intelligence. Augment di mana memperkasakan pengetahuan doktor. So that's why, untuk problem statementnya, kenapa image analytics? Sebab apa? Dunia mempunyai masalah daripada segi kekangan radiologis. Malaysia, secara rasionya, satu doktor equal to 30,000 patient. Tapi if we go to African country, dekat Nigeria, satu doktor radiologist equal to 500,000 patient. We go deeper a bit further, dekat Malawi, satu doktor equal to 8.8 million patient. That's the problem statement. Inspirasi daripada problem statement tersebut, what if we can augment doctor's intelligence in terms of reading the medical image. Tapi dia tak berhenti di situ. ALI.AI bukan saja boleh analisis image X-ray, MRI CTs dan X-ray. Sekarang ALI.AI mempunyai capability untuk menganalisis penyakit kulit, membaca ECG dan membaca lab report. And then it's a free system. Just go to our website and then just enjoy the technology.
Setakat ini free kan? Okey, ini adalah sesuatu yang membanggakan apabila teknologi dan inovasi tempatan telah merentas ke 150 negara. Namun untuk ALI.AI, tadi you ada kongsikan user ataupun pengguna setakat ini. Siapakah antara pengguna utama dalam kalangan mereka ni? Dan mungkin boleh kongsikan bagaimana pengalaman mereka setakat menerima teknologi ini?
Okay, good question. Sebenarnya antara pengguna utama kita adalah golongan doctors. Itu antara first phase dari projek kami. Doctors, clinician, nurses dan medical students. Itu antara penggunaan. So dalam user structure, ALI.AI mempunyai untuk Malaysia sahaja 15% of our users dari Malaysia. The rest is the global country. India almost 14%, United States almost 12%. And then the rest is some small amount. Tapi antara apa yang kita cuba buat adalah untuk fase kedua, ALI.AI boleh digunakan oleh masyarakat umum. Di mana report yang kami cuba keluarkan adalah lebih mudah dipahami oleh masyarakat umum supaya teknologi ini boleh digunakan oleh semua orang. Sebab ingat, missionnya adalah democratize artificial intelligence by putting doctor into your pocket.
Okay, democratize your intelligence into the pocket. It's actually interesting, we can say, quote. Tetapi doktor, ini adalah sesuatu yang kalau penting untuk kita melihat kepada skala yang lebih besar, masa depan penjagaan kesihatan itu sendiri. Bagaimana Dr. Hanif memerhati keadaan ataupun situasi di Malaysia ketika ini? Adakah Malaysia cukup bersedia mempunyai framework untuk mendepani pelbagai peluang maupun cabaran daripada AI ini, terutamanya khusus seperti sektor-sektor kritikal seperti penjagaan kesihatan ini? Apa pandangan Dr. Hanif?
Okey, pandangan saya sangat optimis. Optimis di mana Malaysia mempunyai framework yang ready untuk dari segi polisi dan penggunaan. Sebab apa? Kenapa saya optimis? Sebab bila kita melihat industri artificial intelligence, kecergasan buatan, industri artificial intelligence ini dibahagi kepada 5 cake of layer. Layer pertama adalah energy. Layer kedua adalah microchip. Layer ketiga adalah infrastructure. Layer keempat adalah large language model, LLM. Dan layer kelima adalah application di mana banyak startup Malaysia yang ready di layer kelima. Okay, biar kita bincang satu persatu. Layer pertama adalah energy. Di Malaysia, government policy di Malaysia telah ada neta. So in terms of kita ready untuk energy, sebab setiap artificial intelligence ni consume energy itu sangat tinggi. Tapi I believe Malaysia dengan polisi yang betul dan direction yang betul, kita ada the right policy untuk adopt artificial intelligence. Second is microchip. Microchip of course telah dimonopoli oleh Nvidia dan juga sekarang Google telah mengeluarkan their own microchip called TPU.
Yes.
TPU yang agak fascinating sebenarnya. Tapi apa impactnya kepada Malaysia di mana kita adalah pengeluar I believe we are assemble and testing for microchip dekat Malaysia. So at least kita impact dan gelombang microchip itu telah sampai. Layer ketiga adalah infrastructure. Infrastructure adalah data center. Data center bila kita lihat di Cyberjaya, Johor dan Penang, vibrant, pembinaan data center sangat vibrant. So di mana that's why kita ready untuk infrastructure. Layer keempat adalah LLM, di mana sanalah researcher kita akan utilize artificial intelligence. So dekat Malaysia banyak universiti telah mewujudkan their own LLM. Dekat dunia ni bukan sahaja Malaysia, kita sangat famous dengan ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, correct.
Gemini. Anthropic, Perplexity. Tapi sebenarnya kita ada 1.4 million LLM yang 1.4 million LLM dekat dunia ni. So first kita boleh in terms of 1.4 million tu banyak industri yang boleh dimanfaatkan. Dan layer kelima adalah application level. Di application level di mana all the startup seperti kami akan bermain di liga tersebut. So startup seperti kami bermain di liga tersebut di mana our job untuk mencari masalah dan menyelesaikan masalah tersebut. Bak kata orang, what is the $1 billion question with $1 billion problem with $1 billion answers. So kerja kami adalah untuk mencari masalah dan juga memberi solution yang terbaik dengan menggunakan artificial intelligence.
Okey, menarik, penting untuk kita meneliti. Dr. Hanif ada kongsikan tadi banyak industri boleh manfaatkannya daripada konteks penceritaan LLM tadi. Selain daripada bidang kesihatan, apakah antara sektor ataupun industri lain yang ahli AI tengah explore ataupun tengah approach yang dan ataupun antara sektor yang ahli AI berasa ataupun berpandangan sektor ini punya potensi?
Okey, sekarang ni ahli AI of course fokus kepada company kami dengan all the teams adalah untuk membina satu teknologi diagnostik. Diagnostik di mana kita membantu doctors. Tapi bila kita lihat secara lebih menyeluruh, ahli AI telah digunakan sebab ahli AI ni sangat dinamik. So bila data yang telah diput, contohnya salah satu projek yang kami telah explore dekat suburban clinic dekat Kuantan, klinik Al-Razi, di mana teknologi Ali telah digunakan untuk menyelesaikan masalah report kepada SME di daerah tersebut dari segi kesihatan report. So Ali.AI boleh menghasilkan satu report kesihatan setiap personal secara real time untuk SME. Itu satu. So untuk collaboration dekat Klang Valley, antara beberapa collaboration untuk membina satu timetable setiap klinik. Bila setiap klinik dia mempunyai problem statement di mana turnover setiap pekerja setiap klinik itu sangat tinggi. Bila dia mempunyai lebih kurang 300 ke 400 staff, turnovernya sangat tinggi. What if Ali.AI boleh digunakan di mana Ali membina satu timetable setiap pekerja tersebut, bila turnover itu berlaku, dia tak efek kepada orang-orang yang berikutnya. Problem tu nampak kecil, tapi dia memberi impact yang besar. Remember, artificial intelligence is not about how good your system, it's how you solve the problem.
Betul.
And then the last kali dekat apa yang kita buat dekat di daerah di negeri Sabah baru-baru ni. Negeri Sabah di mana kita membantu gig economics dengan bantuan daripada Tuan Syed Abdullah. Kami gig economy called 12 gig. 12 gig di mana kita menggunakan Ali engine, dia boleh menghubungkan pekerja gig dan juga end users. Dia di-matchingkan menggunakan Ali engine. So matching tersebut di mana matching tersebut boleh menyelesaikan problem-problem yang tertentu dan juga matching tersebut boleh menyelesaikan banyak-banyak peluang, membina banyak-banyak peluang pekerjaan di rural area. So itu salah satu antara beberapa case study yang telah kami explore. Antara case study yang agak menarik di mana bila kami ke Switzerland baru-baru ni, di mana kami telah berjumpa dengan beberapa pharmaceutical company. Pharmaceutical company ini di mana problem statementnya senang. If they want to build a drug discovery, dia mengambil masa mengambil berbelanjaan sebanyak 2 to 3 billion US dollar. But if dia orang menggunakan artificial intelligence, dia orang boleh shorten the time. For example, antara problemnya adalah bila this pharmaceutical company ingin try satu drugs terhadap penyakit barah otak. Bila certain dose telah dikeluarkan oleh certain penyakit barah otak, ahli AI boleh projected how long barah otak itu boleh sembuh. Dari segi image processing, kita boleh project how the barah otak boleh shrink menggunakan ahli engine. So it doesn't mean diorang kena run the clinical trial, kena tunggu.
Okay.
Mean the projection is already there untuk membuatkan landasan clinical trial tu dengan lebih tepat.
Jelas kita lihat penggunaan teknologi AI ini bukan untuk menggantikan peranan doktor, tapi adalah untuk menjadi alat sokongan untuk tingkatkan lagi kecakapan, ketepatan dan juga keselamatan rawatan itu sendiri. Tapi doktor, macam biasalah apabila wujudnya pelbagai teknologi inovasi dahulu ni, ramai akan persoalkan bagaimanakah etika, adakah datanya boleh dipercayai, dan paling penting kawal selia dan polisi seperti doktor katakan perlu bergerak seiring dengan perubahan dalam dunia kesihatan itu. Dan paling penting masa depan bidang ataupun sektor industri kesihatan ini bukan bergantung pada teknologi canggih sahaja, tapi daripada perbincangan kita jelas menunjukkan bagaimana untuk kita memastikan manusia dan AI ini dapat bekerjasama dengan lebih baik demi kesihatan yang lebih baik untuk rakyat Malaysia. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada Dr. Muhammad Hanif, dan untuk anda yang terlepas untuk perbincangan yang sangat penting dan sangat signifikan ini, anda boleh saksikannya di astroni.com dan di semua platform digital Astro AWANI. Jangan ke mana-mana, banyak lagi laporannya akan kami bawakan selepas ini.
Herbal Essences melembutkan dan menyelatkan semula rambut anda dengan 100% pati tumbuhan sebenar seperti minyak argan dan aloe. Menutrisi secara mendalam untuk rambut lembut dan berkilat semula, bebas daripada paraben, parafin dan pewarna. Herbal Essences.
Moment. Catch us if you can. Isn't that just gorgeous? Incredible tennis. Unbelievable. Absolutely amazing. What a race! Oh, that's nice. Wow. Good hit. Oh, yes! And here we go.
Acara sukan secara langsung dan banyak lagi hanya di Astro.
In the past 60 days, Malaysia has moved faster on digital assets than in the past 6 years. RMJDT, Malaysia's first ringgit-backed stablecoin, went live in December with an initial 500 million tokens in circulations, fully backed by ringgit cash and short-term government bonds, all under a national sandbox overseen by Bank Negara and the Securities Commission. The issuer has also set up a 500 million ringgit digital asset treasury with plans to scale to 1 billion ringgit to stabilize network fees and support up to 10% of validators' nodes in the national blockchain infrastructure. Corporates are moving too. Just days later, Capital A and Standard Chartered signed an LOI to develop and test a ringgit-denominated stablecoin inside Bank Negara's Digital Asset Innovation Hub, aiming at real-time settlements, treasury optimizations, and wholesale-level programmable payments, and even regional stablecoin adoption is exploding. APAC recorded $2.4 trillion is on chain stablecoin flows in the past years, with 56% of institutions already using stablecoins for payments and settlements, which is the highest rate globally. And on the regulatory front, Bank Negara has now launched a 3-year tokenizations roadmap with pilots starting in 2026 and industry submissions open until March 1st, 2026, focusing on real-world asset tokenizations, including SME financing, Islamic finance, and 24/7 trade settlement. So now we want to look at what all these hard moves, the launches, pilots, treasury builds, corporate entries, and regulatory frameworks actually mean for Malaysia's digital asset trajectory heading into 2026. Joining me online is Aaron Tang, General Manager for Asia Pacific Luna. I want to say thank you very much, Aaron. we can see that Malaysia enter the global stablecoin arena with MRC and RMJDT, a ringgit-backed stablecoin launched by Blocks and TMJ on Zetrix, respectively, aimed at cross-border settlement and even validator node participation. What does this indicate about Malaysia's actual readiness to adopt digital assets at scale beyond experimentation?
Morning, Nina. Thank you for having me again. I think it's very, very interesting. So I'll tackle this question from a couple of angles. The first is in terms of regulatory frameworks and accessibility. So Malaysia actually is very, very, I would say, encouraging right now, encouraging a lot of innovation in the areas of tokenization. You've already mentioned that Bank Negara Malaysia has issued a discussion paper on asset tokenization, and basically interested parties within Malaysia are expected to submit their their response to that paper by 1st March. Previously also, our PMX has been very, very supportive of digital assets. Bank Negara has also announced their formation of the Digital Asset Innovation Hub. So I think what we're seeing, the moves in the market are basically the response from industry players, whether private or others, who are very, very interested in this kind of regulatory encouragement. And then they are also, making moves to explore these kind of new technologies. Now, I also want to say something about the maturity of infrastructure and technology. So digital assets, cryptocurrency, blockchains, these have been around for a while. And I think over time, people have continued to understand the benefits that they bring. People have understood that they are highly secure systems. I think people now have the confidence and comfort to start launching and innovating some of these new innovations, for example, stablecoins, Malaysian ringgit stablecoins, and so on.
And also take a look at corporate celebrations, which Capital A and Standard Chartered, right after RMJDT, Capital A and Standard Chartered announced plans for a ringgit-denominated stablecoin under Bank Negara's Digital Asset Innovation Hub, with use cases in real-time settlement and treasury optimizations. Why are these corporates, especially non-financial players like Capital A, moving so aggressively into stablecoins now, and what's the strategic incentive?
It definitely comes down to some of the benefits that we have observed over the years. We've observed this with cryptocurrency, first and foremost. So for example, in terms of cost reduction and efficiency, can we make asset transfers across long distances? So for example, international remittances, instead of waiting 2 to 3 business days, can we transfer assets within seconds? And in terms of the transaction fees, can we transfer assets within seconds and only pay, for example, maybe a few cents instead of, say, paying $10 or $25 and so on? So I think some of these advantages of blockchain technology and digital assets we have observed over many years in the private cryptocurrency space, or rather the, I would say, the more decentralized space. And I think financial institutions who are, for example, Standard Chartered, or even I guess you could call Capital A non-financial, but they also have some investments. They have Big Pay. I think they have the Move app and so on. So they are also somewhat very, very interested in financial things over the years. I think this is just a sign that financial institutions are recognizing that the very exciting parts of technology from cryptocurrency and digital assets can also be brought into the more traditional finance world.
And also take a look at Aaron Global Outlooks for 2026 show stablecoin shifting from a crypto tool to core financial infrastructure, powering payments, payroll, and cross-border flows. What's driving these transformations from speculative asset to financial backbone, and where does Malaysia sit in this global realignment?
A lot of the regulators around the world today are very, very supportive. The biggest example, the biggest and most interesting example is, of course, when President Trump took over. This was more than 1 year ago now. That administration is very much more digital asset, crypto friendly versus previous administration. Now, there are several key influential people within that administration right now who have openly voiced support of digital assets, innovation, and so on. We've seen examples of things like the US Genius Act, which was, I think, Q3 last year, which gave plans on how the US government is going to regulate or set rules and guidelines around USD stablecoins. So I think when you have all these kind of support from the regulators, it gives private players, it gives, for example, the banks, the financial institutions. So many of the banks today are already involved in some way and or some form. We're talking about overseas banks at the moment. So, for example, whether it's the JP Morgans or whether it's the BlackRocks, whether it's the HSBC and so on, all of them have some form or some roadmap which involves tokenization, deposit, stable coins, and so on. I think the other thing that I've also mentioned earlier, the maturity of the technology needs to be recognized, because when digital assets crypto first came out, maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, there's so much skepticism, but over time we have seen that these systems are stable, secure, and they can bring so many advantages.
Definitely for
Sorry,
all of
I think you Sorry,
No
Nina, I think you
worries.
mentioned also, you also mentioned like what's Malaysia's position in this right now. I think Malaysia is very, very interesting because over the last 1 to 2 years, we have also seen the government become so much more supportive of digital assets and crypto, and innovation on blockchain and so on. So again, this is, I wouldn't say it is a big shift because we have always been supportive. However, with recent developments, I think the supportiveness is only accelerating, and we really look forward to some of the new things that are going to come out of these new sandboxes by the Bank Negara and Securities Commission and so on.
And definitely new things and new online regulatory comes with it, need to work aligned together. And when it comes to regulatory clarity, as Accelerated 2026 is expected to bring major regulatory clarity across regions from Hong Kong to Europe to the US, which many say is unlocking institutional scale adoptions of stablecoins and tokenized assets. Do you expect Malaysia to follow this regulatory tightening, and how might this shape adoptions among local institutions?
The paper issued by Bank Negara regarding asset tokenization in the financial sector is actually quite interesting. So I wouldn't specifically call it regulatory tightening. Rather, the approach that Bank Negara is taking, they call it a co-creation approach. So I think this is actually a very interesting approach, which indicates that the regulators are going to work hand in hand with private institutions, for example, to develop and launch some of these new solutions. So yeah, it's actually very, very interesting. I think the playing field is quite open, and some of the rules have already been established by, again, Bank Negara under their innovation hub and their paper. So it is very, very exciting to see what are the projects that will come up.
And probably before we end our wrap up our conversations, we take a look at Malaysia's capability. What Malaysia could tokenize first? Institutions predict tokenization will finally move from pilot to production in 2026, especially for money, market funds, credit products, and other real-world assets. Which Malaysian assets are most realistic candidates for tokenizations, and who stand to benefit first? Is it banks, investors, or consumers?
Yeah, let's dive into some of the things that you mentioned. So in terms of, you mentioned money market funds and so on, I view that as a challenge of treasury and liquidity management today. So for example, let's say a financial institution sells a product to a group of customers. Now that sale may happen today, but the actual settlement of funds between a group of customers and that institution, that may happen T+2, T+3, may take 2 days, 1 day, and so on. Now, the benefits of, for example, tokenized assets or stablecoins and so on, could we reduce the time lag to make it more efficient so the settlement can happen instantly or near instantly within seconds, right? Now, in terms of credit products that you've also mentioned, Nina, so in supply chain financing today, let's say my supplier pays me within 30 days, I need to pay my supplier within 30 days. He pays his suppliers within 30 days. There's also this time lag between institutions and so on, which means that SMEs, small, medium enterprises, are constantly not being very efficient with their finances and so on. So again, could tokenization allow a much more efficient system in the sense that, say, the first supplier receives the payment, he can already put it on the blockchain saying that, okay, I've already received my payment. So everyone downstream of that understands that, okay, this payment is happening. So there are a lot of efficiencies to be done in that SME financing area. And I think the other thing that you mentioned in terms of other real-world assets tokenization. For example, could we use blockchain technology to help improve access to Islamic finance products, for example, sukuk bonds, or even ESG-related bonds, so green bonds and so on. I think there's a lot of interesting implementations of that as well. Your final question, sorry, going on and on, but you said who stands to benefit? So I think financial service providers, traditional finance service providers, for example, we've seen the biggest banks in the world all adopt some form of tokenization. Asset managers and so on, for example, BlackRock, the BlackRocks of the world. So I think we will see these benefits to these financial institutions in Malaysia as well. And of course, ultimately, we look at the retail consumers as well. Will they be able to get access to more products faster, more interesting and cheaper products? That is who should benefit from this as well.
Definitely, stablecoins and tokenizations are no longer just a crypto conversations. They're becoming a payments and settlement conversations, and even a treasury efficiency conversation, and ultimately a national competitiveness conversation. And Malaysia has already made several hard moves in just 60 days, launches corporate pilot treasury bills and a clear regulatory roadmap. And the next phase, and then I'm going to be discussing with you, Aaron, is execution. Can we scale safety, build trust, and even turn pilots into real-world utility for business and the economy? Again, thank you, Aaron Tan, General Manager for Asia Pacific at Luno, for joining us and helping us unpack what this means for Malaysia's digital asset trajectory. Perancis dan Eropah akan terus mempertahankan prinsip undang-undang antarabangsa serta multilateralism yang berkesan ketika berdepan peningkatan kecenderungan global ke arah kuasa yang lebih kuat mengatasi segalanya. Presiden Perancis Emmanuel Macron berkata demikian ketika berucap pada Forum Ekonomi Dunia WEF di Davos pada Selasa, bertegas memilih rasa hormat berbanding pembuli serta kedaulatan undang-undang berbanding tindakan yang bersifat keras.
We do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world. But we do prefer respect to bullies, we do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality. You're welcome in Europe and you are more than welcome to France.
Tanpa menyebut mana-mana negara secara langsung, beliau merujuk kepada tekanan kuasa besar yang dilihat semakin mencabar kerangka peraturan antarabangsa. Kenyataan Macron dibuat ketika hubungan antara Paris dan Washington berada dalam fasa tegang susulan beberapa tindakan Presiden Amerika Syarikat Donald Trump, termasuk pendedahan mesej peribadi Macron di laman sosial serta ancaman mengenakan tarif tinggi terhadap produk wine dan champagne Perancis.
This is well known. European competitiveness still lags behind that of the US, and in the current global order, facing precisely the Chinese approach, we have to react. So first, protection. Protection doesn't mean protectionism. But today's Europeans are too naive. This is a unique market open to everybody without checking level playing field. Nobody can access the Chinese market as people are accessing the European market for sure. But even if you take the US and a lot of other countries, the level of protection does exist for investment and trade. And the Europeans are the only one not to protect their own companies and their own markets when the other countries doesn't respect level playing field.
Paris sebelum ini turut menyuarakan kebimbangan terhadap cadangan penubuhan Board of Peace, sebuah badan baharu yang dicadangkan Trump untuk dipengerusikannya kerana dikhuatiri boleh menjejaskan peranan Pertubuhan Bangsa-Bangsa Bersatu PBB. Dalam isu Greenland, Macron juga mengambil pendirian lebih tegas berbanding kebanyakan pemimpin Kesatuan Eropah EU dengan menggesa blok itu mengaktifkan instrumen perdagangan paling berkesan sebagai tindak balas terhadap tekanan Washington. Presiden Perancis itu turut menggesa EU memperkukuh sokongan terhadap industri Eropah yang menurutnya semakin terhimpit oleh persaingan tidak seimbang daripada Amerika Syarikat dan China. Katanya industri mereka kini dibunuh secara perlahan-lahan kerana ketiadaan rangka kerja persaingan yang adil dan setara. Macron turut memberi isyarat bahawa EU tidak akan teragak-agak menggunakan instrumen perdagangan yang ada apabila berdepan tindakan yang dianggap sebagai paksaan ekonomi.
Geopolitik kini semakin mempengaruhi pasaran, rantaian bekalan dunia semakin berpecah, manakala ketidaksamaan teknologi dan kepercayaan muncul sebagai risiko utama kepada perniagaan. Laporan Risiko Global 2026 menyifatkan dunia sedang memasuki apa yang digelar sebagai era persaingan di mana risiko politik kini sama pentingnya dengan faktor ekonomi. Persoalannya, bagaimana industri global perlu menyesuaikan strategi mereka? Mampukah daya tahan menggantikan pengurusan risiko tradisional dan adakah tanggungjawab masih boleh menjadi kelebihan daya saing dalam dunia yang semakin terpecah? Editor kanan Astro AWANI Najib Aroff ada laporannya.
Persoalan besar yang bermain di fikiran di World Economic Forum 2026 ini adalah soal bagaimana perkembangan geoekonomik, geopolitikal dalam membentuk dasar ekonomi. Tapi pada masa sama kita ingin melihat reaksi industri dalam berdepan ketidaktentuan ini. Kerana pada akhirnya mereka yang melabur wang untuk membuka perniagaan, mengembangkan perniagaan, apakah yang akan memberikan impak kepada perniagaan mereka? Bagaimana untuk mereka mengemudi perkara-perkara ini dan juga situasi yang unik dan juga amat kritikal ini? Itu yang kita ingin bincangkan pada episod pada kali ini. Saya berbesar hati, saya bersama dengan Francisco Betty, iaitu Head Global Industries Team, member of the Executive Committee World Economic Forum. Francisco, thank you so much for joining us at this time. I want to start our discussion with the current or the latest report by World Economic Forum, which is the Global Risk Report. It mentioned about the age of competition with geopolitics increasingly shapes trade and also industries. How do you see the industry should rethink their strategies, and also at the same time how different industries react to it?
Absolutely, no, and thank you for having me today. The pleasure to be here with you. Live from Davos. I think that what is very interesting is that geopolitics is becoming as one of the major risks in the report. And that means two things for companies. On the one hand, I mean, every company really needs to try to develop what we call a geopolitics capability and muscle to really understand how the landscape is changing and how fast it is changing to be able to adjust. But then on the other hand, the second element is really to embrace what we call continuous adaptation, which is the ability to respond as fast as possible to whichever disruptions we may be facing, whether related to geopolitics or other of the trends that I'll be very happy to discuss. Companies need to develop this ability to respond on the spot and be able to adjust to that, whether it's their operations, their business models, the way in which they run their global businesses.
You mentioned about the trends just now. We also have some of the foreign examination which predicts the mega trends that will happen throughout the year, especially for 2026. You could share with us some of the trends. But sometimes all these trends are projected beforehand, and a lot of things can happen during that time. For instance, changes of foreign policies and all that will definitely impact the way business do things and all that. You could share with us the trends that you're foresee.
Absolutely. I think there are 3-4 major trends that companies are monitoring, but also that they are using as, let's say, North Star to develop their new strategies and adjust, as I was mentioning before. Number one, we talk about geopolitics, right? A lot can change on the trend, global landscapes. We are seeing new dynamics playing out. That means a lot for every company, especially with manufacturing operations who have a global footprint, right? You need to rethink about your suppliers, your customers, how you will be servicing them, how you will be reconfiguring the way in which those value chains operate. And that's number one. Number two, it's everything that has to do with geoeconomics, right? What is the growth path that we're going to see in the year ahead, and how, as a company, you adjust mainly your business model and the way in which you are setting business strategy, prices, and so on and so forth. Number three, I think it's everything that has to do with access to talent, workforce transformation for what is now what we call, the age of artificial intelligence. And number four, I think, is the need to, as urgently as possible, unlock innovation through AI and other technologies, but there's a desperate need not just to use AI and technology to transform operations that be more efficient, but also to think about new value creation, new business models.
Yeah, those days for the business to, in their consideration in opening up and do the expansion for business into other countries and all that, are looking at maybe cheap labor or the cost efficiency aspect of it. But now there's a lot of consideration to be made by each business, I would say. How do you see the current situation, especially the tariff war, at the end of the day, it will impact the decision making of the corporate or the industries in making decision where to expand and how to expand and how much in terms of risk calculation for the business itself.
Yeah, I think it is changing. It continues changing, like you said, but it's a change that started many years ago, right? We have seen value chains transforming. We have seen a situation in which, access to labor is not mainly the main competitive advantage as it was in the past, and companies are looking into access to resources, whether it's minerals, critical minerals, access to affordable and sustained energy, which is needed to power the facilities, the ability to have access to a network, an ecosystem of suppliers. That's another key challenge, because it's not about moving a factory from one place to the other. You need to bring the entire value chain with you along the way. Access to talent and access to research and development capabilities, which is mainly knowledge and your ability to then power innovation from whichever facility in which you may need to be producing going forward.
Yeah. It's very, very crucial what you mentioned just now. I want to talk about this topic as well, the small medium enterprises. This is because you've been to Kuala Lumpur for many times, so you know that the backbone of our economy is small medium enterprises.
It is.
Right? And it's very crucial. I want to link the MSMEs into the advancements of technology such as AI, because a lot of the AI advancements, it's happening so rapidly that even not just the government, even the corporate, the MSMEs find it difficult for them to chase it along. How do you see that the small medium enterprises, not just from my region, maybe from other countries that we can learn from, is chasing and also adapting to AI advancement that is so rapidly changing and happening currently?
I think that it's important to mention that in most countries, small and medium-sized enterprises make up in between 95-99% of the economic landscape, right, across all the companies. So it's a significant portion of every national economy. And I think it is fair to mention that in the context of this AI-driven transformation that we are seeing, they are the ones who are most at risk of being left behind.
Yep.
Right? I think that when you are a large company, you have the means and capabilities to invest big. When you're running a smaller enterprise, you have no choice other than following the trend, but making those investments, those commitments, training your people becomes even harder and harder. So two patterns that we are seeing to make sure that SMEs are brought on board. Number one is making sure that the large companies really somehow support their suppliers in this transformation. They embed the SMEs that work with, who are part of the value chains, into the digital transformation, AI-driven transformation programs, and there's a lot of coaching and mentoring that can happen. On the other hand, I think there's a huge opportunity for public-private cooperation in this space.
Right.
And this is an area in which the collaboration, not just with big corporations, but also with governments, can be essential to develop the right programs and then brings on board SMEs on the digital transformation journey and the AI journey.
Having planning and good plans is very important, very important. But for the past few years, at least through this platform, Working Forum, we've discussed about rebuilding trust and all that. And it's not an easy task given that what's happening around the world and all that. But how do you see that with the trust level is decreasing towards institutions and all that? How do you see the industries can join hand in hand to ensure that the trust is built again by the public and by so many aspects of the society?
It's a great question. There are probably two steps. I think number one is being part of the conversation. The theme of this annual meeting is the spirit of dialogue. I mean, there's a reason of why that's the main theme, and it's mainly because it's the very foundational step that is needed to rebuild trust among the different stakeholders that operate in society, in our economies. The second one, I think, is moving then from the discussion into identifying those areas in which joint actions can be put in place, right? Whether it's across companies, in between companies and governments, but really not just to bring on board, as we were saying before, small and medium enterprises where there is an immediate business need, but also consumer society and countries at large.
Yeah. My final question to you, Francisco, because he's a busy guy, so he has a lot of engagement after this. What do you hope from this session, Working Forum 2026, especially for industries to understand better? One thing, they understand the challenges ahead, but what is it that you hope, instead of just having dialogue, but action must be taken not just from the corporate side, but also from the world leaders itself?
I think there are many areas where I hope we'll be able to gain a common understanding and identify opportunities where collaboration can really happen, whether it's on workforce transformation that has to happen at scale across every nation right at the time in which we are seeing AI changing the way in which we work, or when it comes to collaboration on access to technology, the distribution of technology. I really hope that we're going to find at least a couple of areas where concrete action will be able to happen in the ahead, and I'm confident that through discussions it will happen and we're going to get there.
All right, let's just hope for the best. Francisco, thank you so much for joining us this time. Okay, itu bagaimana kita melihat bahawa peranan corporate itu dan juga bagaimana untuk berdepan dengan ketidaktentuan. Ini bukan kerja yang mudah. Ada banyak perkara yang perlu diselesaikan dan juga ditangani oleh pihak swasta, dan juga seperti yang Francisco sebutkan tadi, ini adalah peluang pekerjaan yang mereka sediakan dan penting untuk mereka terlibat sama dalam dialog tersebut mencari penyelesaian. Sekian sahaja laporan saya untuk World Economic Forum 2026 dari Davos, Switzerland. Banyak lagi perkembangan yang kita akan bawakan selepas ini.
Kerajaan Negeri Selangor akan melancarkan program pemberian vaksin influenza secara percuma di 4 daerah yang mencatatkan kadar jangkitan tertinggi. Pemilik atau pemandu kenderaan asing, khususnya dari Singapura, yang gagal memiliki atau mengaktifkan permit kemasukan kenderaan VEP tidak dibenar keluar Malaysia selagi tidak membayar saman. Kekerapan gangguan perkhidmatan aerotrain di lapangan terbang antarabangsa Kuala Lumpur KLIA tidak boleh diterima.
Inovasi! Kini tiba di kemuncaknya. Pemilihan idea produk inovasi terbaik semakin mencabar.
Para peserta baharu yang bakal menjadi usahawan inovatif.
Anda akan menjadi saksi. Which idea will win over the jury and the consumer?
Inovaton merealisasikan impian anda.
Siapakah yang layak menjadi juara?
Inovaton akhir Sabtu 9 malam di Astro dan Astro Go.
Malaysia's entrepreneurial ecosystem is one of the most dynamic in the region, driving innovation and job creation. Yet, access to financing remains a persistent challenge, especially for MSMEs, mid-tier companies and emerging segments like the gig economy. These gaps not only limit growth, but also impact competitiveness in an increasingly digital and sustainability-driven economy. At the heart of efforts to bridge these gaps is Credit Guarantee Corporation Malaysia Berhad, an institution that has evolved significantly over the years to support businesses across the spectrum. Leading that mission today is Muhammad Nazri Omar, President and Chief Executive Officer of CGC Malaysia. Nazri, thank you so much for being with us today. Let's start with big picture, where do you see the most pressing financing gaps today?
Thank you. Assalamualaikum. Salam satu madani, Harith. Thank you for inviting me here for today's segment. It's an interesting question you raised because this has been talked about for many, many years and still is being talked about again. Yeah. And CGC has been around for more than 50 years. We've done more than 500,000 SME accounts and more than 100 billion financing access. And yet we're still talking about financing gaps, right? And specifically for MSMEs. So when you deep dive into where these financing gaps are, of course, they are across the segments, but there are also some pronounced segments that needs more help than others. And you touch on some of them as in a few minutes ago. One of those segments, of course, are the micro side. The micro here also covers the gig workers. And that's something new over the last 5 years. Yeah, you've seen a lot more freelancers, not just the Grab drivers, they're also services professionals. And of course, the small segment of the medium-sized industries. There need to be a lot more effort into this, right? But there's also been improvements, and I also need to highlight that the approval rate for the MSMEs have improved to above 80% these days, right? But in terms of what else needs to be done, the developed markets, the approval rates are above 90%. So there are still room for improvement. And so when we deep dive to where most of these approval rates that needs to be supported some more, and where Credit Guarantee Corporation like ourselves comes in to help support this, will be to guarantee financing in the micro and the small segment, which is what we're seeing today. But there are also certain sectors in the economy that also needs more attention to. The high-risk sectors, if you may, right? The construction, the services sector, agriculture and whatnot. And when we deep dive into why these segments in particular need more help, it's not surprising. They tend to be without a track record that is sustainable over the last, maybe they just started less than 3 years ago. They also, because of services sector, they don't have a lot in terms of tangible assets that they can pledge as collateral for what bankers normally ask for. So naturally then, these are the segments that needs more help. And some of these segments are also quite unique. And I know you highlight certain segments like agriculture, weather prone. You highlight even the creative sector, the orange economy. It's very unique. So yes, the segments here in terms of financing gaps are variety, diverse, but there are also certain areas that needs more help than others.
Talking about CGCs, I mean, CGCs' roles have been, I mean, the scope has evolved over the years. From your experience in the past few months as a PCEO designate, how has CGC's role changed, and also where do you see it's heading now that you helm the organization here?
Yeah. So as I said, we've done a lot in terms of guaranteeing credit. We've done even some direct financing over the last few years. So we've set that foundation. But what we do see is to have bigger impact, especially in these particular sectors that is more pronounced, right? The approach has to be modified. And what I mean by that is we have to think of new ways to enhance the credit. We have to look at even the financing product itself that the bankers provide or the non-bankers provide. What kind of product is suitable for the gig workers and the small, medium size as opposed to the traditional corporates. Right?
Untapped group.
Exactly. So some of them, the cash flow is uncertain. And it's the requirement of financing is very short, maybe less than 3 months. And so the product needs to be assessed what is appropriate. And then our guarantee needs then to be applied to what's appropriate for these market segments. So that's one way that I like to see how CGC can do something different. Of course, the other one is the outreach. And the best way to stress on this is, of course, the digital approach, because we cannot be everywhere at once. And so the outreach has to be improved further in terms of digitally so that we can stretch our presence across the country better.
You're talking about outreach and how about, I mean, in terms of bridging the gaps, you know, how the roles of CGC, number one, especially across different segments. You mentioned about MSMEs, mid-tier companies, and also now emerging segments like gig economy. How you dedicate and also tap those untapped group previously.
So first and foremost, of course, as I said just now, we have to do better in terms of outreach to these segments. So what we have done is we've set up a platform called IMSME to reach out to this segment and get them on board, because IMSME is like a supermarket funding platform, right? So people come in and see what is out there, options for them. Some of them could be financing. We are trying to do insurance as well, products for them to look at, as well as other information that they need in order for their business to thrive, right? And then we realized just recently that because of the gig segment, they have a different requirements and different needs. So we came up with this IMGig platform as well. And lo and behold, the take-up is also quite interesting, because everyone in that segment wants to find some other solutions for them. So this is where I think things will have to be done differently, given that this needs now is digital, as well as the requirement of their financing is different. The outreach has to be better, and the solutions that we are going to provide through these platforms also have to be targeted and different.
We know that the financial landscape is shifting rapidly, and of course on the, for example, like tighter credit conditions and digitalization, sustainability pressures. How is CGC adapting to these changes, and particularly as you prepare for CGC's 2026 priorities?
yes, credit appetite from banks will shift, right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, we also have to reach out to non-banks, and that's what we started doing as well, so that the SMEs have an option other than just banks. They also have the non-banks. These are the P2P platforms, now the upcoming digital banks as well. So the risk appetite will be different across this, and we are there to support in terms of providing credit guarantee. Now, how we can do differently in this credit environment when different people have different credit appetites, we also need to target these segments that need more help than others, and the risk appetite from us has to be more, right? So that we can take on more risks for these particular segments and help these SMEs tap into the financing market.
Maybe my last question, Nazri, beyond financing, what support do MSMEs need to stay competitive and resilient, and how is CGC strengthening non-financial support through its development program?
That's a very good question. Especially as we know, the SMEs are new to the market, new to the businesses and new to the financing requirement. So what we have done and we continue doing is providing financial advisory, business advisory, connecting them with the right business markets, matching businesses. Over the last year alone, we've reached out to 6,000 MSMEs through various events and programs of financial advisory programs. So we need to do more of this, but we also need to be more in-depth and targeted in terms of financial advisory, as well as ESG compliance. Because these two people need more help. They need more hand-holding. And so my team will be more dedicated towards providing services to help these MSMEs in these two particular segments in particular.
Talking about ESG, how do MSMEs trying to adapt? Because we know that their struggle is like day-to-day business, So maybe you have some perspective, especially on the financing.
So you're right. There are going to be the segment that's just day-to-day, right? And their focus is more cash flow than anything else. But there are going to be some SMEs that realize that they have to depend on their vendors and their suppliers and their customers who are ESG mindset. MNCs, for example, or even now the mid-tier and large corporates who are serving these MNCs and the vendors are SMEs. Right? So they also need to be aware what their customers are looking for, what are the regulators looking for, so that they can be ahead rather than behind and catching up all the time. So we provide that guidance. Some of them will not be as priority at the moment, but eventually they will realize as they grow, it will come into their business plan and how they're going to target their market.
Nazri, thank you so much for being with us. Of course, we've heard, how bridging financing gaps is not just about access to capital, but also about building resilience and also competitiveness for Malaysian entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, Nazri. That's all for now for Niaga Awani. All of this will be available on our digital platform, AstroAwani.com, and also all our social media platforms. Thank you for now.